bang.
It's jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell.
We're not actually using that, are we?
What?
We're using Christmas music to end our review.
What, this one?
I don't know. Oh, are you talking about In Mean Girls and this? Oh.
Hello, I'm Chris.
And I'm Tom.
You're watching That Review Show. Tom, what are we talking about today?
We were going to talk about a good Christmas film, but there aren't any. Oh. That was Hollywood. There's a Christmas film that we've got to see.
What's it called?
Krampus.
Holy
It's the most wonderful time of the year. With the kids jingle bells.
Merry Christmas! Looks like Martha Stewart threw up in here.
This is delicious, honey.
It's a little dry.
Well, mine's delicious.
Mine's dry.
Do you want to trade?
It's
Christmas. It's Christmas. It's Christmas.
with those holiday greetings and gifts.
So, Chris, what is Krampus about?
Krampus is about family Christmas where the youngest son of this family loses all Christmas hope because his family are not very... His cousins and aunt and uncle aren't very nice, and he gets so upset that he rips up his... He's trying to believe in Santa Claus still, but he rips his letter up and throws it out the window, and in doing so he summons St. Nicholas's shadow, Krampus, who comes to take them all away to the underworld.
Yeah, it's the whole idea of he doesn't come to give gifts, he comes to take.
Mm.
Yeah, to get rid of your problem and give you the horrible wish you wished for.
Yes.
How is it that he can be an older and more ancient spirit when he's St. Nicholas's shadow? Surely St. Nicholas should exist for his shadow, therefore, too.
Maybe he just sort of like piggybacked onto St. Nicholas's whole vibe.
I did like the idea, though, that this is some sort of like ancient folklore demon thing.
Well, it is, isn't it?
That's now manifesting as the new things that we know. You know, everything was horrific demons covered in a skin of normality, of Christmas presentness.
So you had like the Jack in the Box and the teddy bear, and
I think that was one of the strongest things about it, the sort of design and conception of the monsters.
Yeah.
They were really cool.
And I liked Krampus looks good, and I liked the fact that 90% of the monsters were either puppets or animatronics or
You're
costumes.
quite right, come to think of it. It wasn't CG, because even though Krampus was, when you do finally see the face, kind of a plastic face, it still looked brilliant.
Mm. Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah.
They obviously CG'd him when he's sort of jumping across rooftops, but that was fine. He was sort of
That was well cool.
They played it well. They managed to resist showing the creature too soon. So you saw him, but he was in the distance through the snow, jumping around.
Yeah, I mean, but then he wasn't the actual threat on their lives that creates the tension and the jump scares throughout the film. So it was fine that they showed him, because the things that are actually trying to kill them, the mysterious beasts and other things that are there to murder them, those they conceal until the last minute.
Yeah,
in the way that you should in horror.
Yeah, no, I thought it was well played. I thought it worked as a not particularly scary. It was a fun horror movie.
It had to be pretty tense in places.
There were points where it very much played on the conventions of horror. Yeah. So as she was opening one of the Christmas presents, I was sat there just like, you know it's going to happen, you know, and then it didn't.
In fact, section panning round the girl in the car, and I kept going, when's it going to arrive behind her? You know, we keep going round waiting for the thing to arrive in the side of the screen.
She's hiding under the car and the feet are walking around, and then they went away, and I was expecting this sudden, just her to like disappear backwards screaming, a la Paranormal Activity.
Yes.
I thought the characters were great.
Characters was great. In fact, strengthened very much by the casting. There were moments in this film where I was looking at the actors and going, you were perfect to play this role, and particularly the children. I think all of the children were excellently cast. Oh, and they weren't annoyingly bad actors?
No, and I think one thing that I really liked about it was that the older sister of the young boy, who's kind of the main character, she was the sort of 15-year-old.
The kind of only likeable and reasonable character to begin with.
Well, yeah, that was the thing. She wasn't like the older sister, who made fun of him all the time, nor was she like the saccharine, sweet, sickly older sister. She was just an older sister. She tried to look out for him, but at the same time, she was more interested in going off to see her boyfriend.
Yeah, their relationships were more realistic than you would normally find in Hollywood.
Yeah, no, I thought it was good. Well acted, well scripted. Few lines of dialogue that missed the mark, perhaps.
Oh, you were talking about sort of out of character, or not out of character, but sort of out of situational responses to things.
Yeah, a family member gets sucked out of the window by evil Christmas elves, and the response is, "Oh, great."
Yeah, like what?
Really?
Yeah, I'll say this though. I think they grasped some of the characters very well in terms of how they wrote dialogue for them. For instance, there's this irritating uncle character, and he's, to quote Othello, the play Othello, horribly stuffed with epithets of war. Like everything he says has got a military reference in it. Like he's got a baby who's gone in its nappy, and he says this warhead's armed. They're like, oh, we need to go out and look for the girl. Oh, a recon mission, eh? Everything with him is weapon and army based.
How we were going to survive Christmas with 12 people stuck in a house with no heat and no electricity.
Or food.
There's plenty of leftovers, Howard.
Beer it is.
My favourite character actually though was the child, the youngest, well, not baby, but the youngest child of that family. I started laughing as soon as he walked on screen, and he was perfectly cast. He sold that part just by his face. He didn't say a line in the whole film.
No.
Wow.
What about the opening section? Best opening section ever?
I'm kind of split on this one because I loved the opening section. I thought it was great. It was a kind of comment. Well, this is kind of one of the reasons I'm a bit torn on it. It was a comment on consumerism, but
quite a blatant one.
But which kind of felt sort of weirdly out of place. Like to look at another horror film that did this.
That never came back.
Dawn of the Dead. The original Dawn of the Dead was about consumerism.
Yeah,
that's the whole point of it. They're in a mall. The zombies are there mindlessly walking around, and it's a metaphor for shoppers just mindlessly wandering around to buy stuff that they don't need. And this, you had that as the first scene. And then they never sort of talked about it again.
Yeah, that theme never returns.
No.
It was still great, though. It was great. As a standalone, it was a nice sort of David Attenborough documentary on the behaviour of animals.
But that was the thing. Like, I would have loved that. I think you said this would make a great YouTube video.
Yeah, on its own.
I think it's difficult, obviously, because going into the start of the film is very Christmas filmy with the lighting, it's very high-key lighting. It's, but it's going to become a horror film. But at the same time, that beginning sequence kind of gave away the fact that this wasn't your standard Christmas film.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish it hadn't showed its hand so early and been like, this isn't your typical Christmas film. I kind of wish they played that close to the chest, even though you knew going in. So this is why I'm torn on it.
I suppose if we're talking about sort of narrative structuring and how that feeds into the genre, the way the rest of the film goes after that point is really nice. Like, feels like a family Christmas film where the tension and the problem is, the relatives are here and it's going to be difficult. And it actually plays for a while like a quite comedic situation problem.
I tell you what, though, actually, I've just remembered that scene at the start it's basically in a mall and everyone's nicking and stuff and fighting each other and getting tased by the mall security. That actually ends with the main family running in because their son's in a Christmas play and he's beating someone else around the face. So it does tie in, and that then kind of
ties in. Yeah,
that then bridges straight across to the first scene of them.
Whether he's in a Christmas play at the mall. Not at school. He seems to have his teachers there. I don't know. That was a bit odd. It's all right.
Kids go and perform in places, don't they?
Yeah, it's not impossible. It was. I mean, if we're getting pernickety, to be honest, I thought that was a great scene. It's nice to sort of clean your brain of whatever you've been thinking of outside the cinema. You see this thing, go, right, and it links, and then you watch the film, and you're like, what an interesting set of characters we have, what an interesting set of tensions between them, and then it just goes, no, this is about a massive storm and terrifying big monster jumping around the neighbourhood.
A bit from Dusk Till Dawn in that sense.
But better. Dusk Till Dawn sucks, in my opinion.
It starts off as like a sort of awkward Christmas comedy and then becomes a horror film suddenly halfway through.
Well, what's good, though, is that they keep the elements of those characters and the tensions with them going and develop them, whereas from Dusk Till Dawn, actually, I missed the Tarantino half during the Rodriguez half. It was just sort of like, come on, can't we have the other bit?
Yeah, the first bit of Dusk Till Dawn is definitely better.
This rolls them together nicely, yeah. Better than other Christmas films you've seen?
So we might get a little bit into spoiler territory here. I'm going to say anything, I'll let you know. But I loved it. However, I felt that once the creatures had started to appear, it got a bit like, okay, so the mum goes off on her own and a creature comes and takes her, then the two girls go off on their own and a creature comes and attacks them, then the guy goes off on his own.
Well, you're waiting for them to all be picked off. There's an inevitability, which
Yes.
reminded me of, as I said before, Drag Me to Hell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it felt like that. Well, why was that a problem?
I don't know, it was just a bit laboured. I think, like you say, because there was an inevitability about it, it just started to feel a bit drawn out.
Yeah, actually, do you know what? I felt that too. I was sort of like, when's the next one going to go? There was a point where I thought that. In fact, there was a few points where I thought that. Like,
And then
come on, next one, please,
They do weird things like, when the elves showed up, that annoyed me a little bit, and they corner the whole family.
And only take two of them.
Only take two of them and then disappear again. So you're like, well, because then when the family go out, they then pick them off more, and it's like, well, why didn't you just take all of them at that point?
I wonder if, somewhere in the writing, it's like it's supposed to just be that yes, they're all meant to go, but it's meant to be a maximum suffering for the boy possible.
Possibly, yeah.
And I wonder if that's what they were going for, but it's never made explicit. And in fact, yeah, definitely spoilers. What was the overall meaning of the plot? Like, what actually happened? Because at the end is confusing, ambiguous, really. Yeah. You could take it one of two ways.
Shall we say then, right, so we'll go into spoilers now. No, guys, we're going to talk about the end of the film. So, if you want to avoid spoilers, you need to skip to this time code here. One thing that confused me right towards the end, like sort of the penultimate, the 16th to last minute of the film, shall we say, there's a thing under the snow that keeps attacking them, and at the end, the last three people all just get sucked under the snow by the thing under the snow, which was a bit meh. And then the kid hits one of the elves out of he's trying to drive the car and the elf's in the window, and he pushes the elf out onto the snow, and the thing under the snow eats the elf. And the kid's like, oh. And I thought, oh, okay, so...
Because all the family have gone.
Yeah.
They're all turning on each other.
Well, I thought like maybe in summoning Krampus, there's something that comes with Krampus that isn't with Krampus. It's just another demon that will eat anything, or maybe it's going to help him. But then that just nothing came of that. The kid looks all...
a minor moment with a minor ambiguity. There's a bigger problem here.
Yeah.
And that's that when they're all caught, Krampus is about to drag them all to hell. Well, the last one to hell. Mm-hmm. He goes, no, give me back my family, take me instead. And you're like, and in fact, you turned to me in the cinema and went, oh, sacrifice. Because actually earlier on, his grandmother, who met Krampus first when she was a little girl, had the same experience, tells him it's a time of year for sacrifice. Mm-hmm. So, and I was like, okay, that's going to be quite an interesting resolution. And actually what we'll see is his sort of hellish eternity, and they're all saved, and they'll have forgotten about him, and that will be quite unsettling and sad. Mm-hmm. I thought that's what we'd get, but no. Krampus sort of thinks about it for a bit, and then, I'll take that one, and I'll take you. And then when he goes in, we get the false denouement. And I should say it's a false denouement. You think it's the ending of the film, or you're supposed to think it's the ending of the film, and then, of course, it turns out to be not what it seems.
So,
and that's...
Yeah, for me, the last 15 minutes of the film annoyed me. It kind of, the last 2 minutes of the film, it sort of did a little bit of a U-turn and made me a little happier.
But then that's it. It was meant to kind of annoy you. It's meant to make you go, it's all a dream. It's all happy. But then it got a bit creepy when they all start looking at him because in his gift he receives the bell from Krampus, and then it's what is it actually? Yeah, so and that's the problem.
This is where we I wouldn't say we disagreed, but we just had differing theories. So the girl goes in, the last girl gets thrown in, and the kid's shouting at Krampus. He says, take me. I was expecting that he was going to like rugby tackle Krampus into hell, and in doing so, he would have sacrificed himself, and everything would be undone because he sacrificed and blah blah blah. But what happens instead is Krampus drags him in. He then wakes up on Christmas morning, and everything's fine and lovely, and it's great. The family's back, and they're all being nice to each other. But then
I knew it wouldn't last though. Yeah.
He finds the gift from Krampus, and then you start to hear just like sound clips of the night before with them all dying, and the whole family sort of like looks really unsettled at each other. And then it slowly
turn to stare at him. Yeah.
Slowly pulls back, and you eventually see that he's there in a snow globe in Krampus's wherever he lives.
Laboratory, whatever. Yeah.
Now the way I took that is that he said, "Take me instead," and Krampus was like, "No, I'll just have you as well, actually." And then they were all stuck there,
yeah.
And they all thought they were happy, and then they all suddenly sort of remembered, and then realised, like, "Oh no, actually, we are in the underworld because Grandma told us about what Krampus does earlier, and we've just realised." Whereas you felt it was more a case of he was in the underworld and his punishment was to live with his family knowing that it wasn't real.
Yes,
and
constantly relive the suffering. And again, I think you're probably right if we take a straight reading of this, and that's not very satisfying.
Well, it was difficult because I was thinking about how they were going to end it, and none of the ways I could think about how they would end it was satisfying. It was all a dream, it was
Well, I
unsatisfying.
said would have been quite good, wouldn't it? That he's taken, we see his eternity of hell, and they've forgotten about him in the real world, and that's sad and poignant.
Yeah.
I think that would have been really cool, where they're just like, oh, happy Christmas, you know, oh, if only we'd had another son, or something like that, I don't know what, you know.
I like my idea that he rugby tackles Krampus into the thing, and then you see the boy lying like this, and then everyone else is saved because Jesus.
Do you know, if they'd made a second or third Matrix film, I always thought it might end up that way.
What, with Neo doing the whole Jesus thing?
Yeah, that could have been where they went. It's a good thing they didn't bother making a second or third.
I always thought if they did Man of Steel, they'd put that imagery in there 16 times just to make sure you knew.
Well, it's a good thing there haven't been any Superman films recently.
Even though Superman's actually more Moses than Jesus because he's the baby in the basket who gets found and brought up.
Well, in terms of symbolism, but you know,
and...
yeah. Was Jesus a space alien? Actually, let's not have this conversation.
It's Christmas. Nothing bad's gonna happen on Christmas.
So, Tom, is Krampus worth the ticket price?
Well, don't get us wrong. Like, we did really enjoy this film. It has great strengths. The Jim Henson style-y, animation-y, puppety stuff is cool, but with horror elements. The pacing and tension, I think, overall of the film is pretty good. And in fact, I really like the characters. So there's three things to enjoy. It's a good film to watch. I would suggest seeing it in a cinema.
If you can.
Yeah, the surround sound was brilliant in this, actually.
Yeah, it was really good.
So, yes, it's worth the ticket price. People should go and see this film, and not other things out at the moment, like The Good Bloody Dinosaur.
The sound design was great in this. There was a moment where everyone had fallen asleep when they were meant to be staying up to watch out for ghoulies, and the Silent Night was playing on the iPad, and it just been slowed down a touch. It was just slightly drawn out, and it was just felt wrong. You know, it was unsettling. So there was a lot of that
Actually,
kind of
that
thing.
scene was great. That petering out. You know, you see the fires dying down. You see that's off, and then as soon as it's off,
you hear the
yeah, brilliant. Yes, great moments in this film. Really good to see.
Yes, I would also say it's worth the ticket price. I would watch this film every Christmas and just not watch the last 10 minutes or so.
Fine. Yeah. Well, that's that then.